Maurizio Fondria, sporting his new Image racing helmet, used yesterday's time trial stage in Bolton to increase his overall lead in the Kelloggs Tour of Britain. He now leads by 24 seconds ahead of Vyacheslav Yekimov, with Olaf Ludwig in third. Our own Sean Yates is fourth. Andre Schmill in 10th place had his moment of glory as well, when in Liverpool the World Cup leader winks to the crowd as he notches his first win on British roads. Liverpool also brought about a change in the green jersey points competition. Now it's Johan Museo of Belgium in the lead ahead of Jan Zerada. In the Pop-Tarts Mountains competition, the Aussie Scott Sunderland kept his lead, and in the Ordnance Survey Sprint, Britain's Ben Luckwell is still ahead. Hello again and welcome this morning to the city of Chester, where the riders are now preparing for the penultimate day of this year's Kellogg's Tour of Britain. But I'm afraid to say that for Phil Anderson, last year's defending champion, his race ended this morning when he decided not to start. In fact, the doctors overnight have now discovered a small bone broken in his arm since that crash a couple of days ago. But for the rest of the race, well, they have a tough day in prospect as they go into the Peak District. Now, overall in this race, the last man is the English young professional, Rob Reynolds-Jones. Now, there's no disgrace in being what the French call the lanterne rouge, the red light, the tail of the train, because in a field of this quality, just finishing the race can be seen as a great achievement. Let's go to Paul Sherwin, who's now with Rob.
It's tough, you've lost a lot of time so far, but are we going to see you trying to show yourself at the front of the race before we get to the finish?
I hope so, yeah. Hopefully I won't come out of the tour totally unnoticed. I'll try and have a go on the climbs, get publicity for my team and myself, you know.
I spoke to a rider the other day who was actually Lanterne Rouge, and he wasn't very happy about it. How do you feel?
Well, I prefer to be a little bit more up the classification, but you know, that's the way it goes with these class of riders. You know, before I came to the race, people said, you know, you can climb, Rob, but obviously these guys have come out of the Tour of France, the top riders, and it's difficult.
Well, Rob, you may not be as good as some, but you're better than most, and the field now rolling away from the city of Chester, and the route today, Paul, is particularly hard.
It's a very tough course for the riders today, especially the climb over Mao Cop and then High Cross Hill and Shining Tor before the race heads down into Leicester. It's ideal racing conditions today with a high of 19 degrees Celsius. Once again, as we've had most days this week, cloudy and overcast with the possibility of sunny spells in the afternoon.
And as the race passes Burbridge Junction on the Shops Union Canal, at the back of the race, an old friend makes acquaintances with a former racing partner, Alan Piper with Dag.
The oldest rider in the race, 37-year-old Dag Otto Lauritsen. He just finished the Tour de France, and he got a little bit of fame there in the Tour. Tell us about it, Dag.
No, I don't know about that. You know, in the Tour, I'm glad I finished. You know, it's my last Tour, and I did 8 tours, and 10,000 they were there for the first time, I think, and they selected one rider, so I guess they picked me.
What do you mean they selected one rider? What to do? Strip or something?
No, I mean, they asked to take some photos and stuff, but I wouldn't take off my clothes because of my family, but I mean, they picked one rider.
So you're the sexiest man in the Tour de France?
That's what I said. That was before they knew that I was the oldest guy, you know.
Well, you're still 28 years off your pension, Dag, so don't worry too much about it. This is the first breakaway of the day. Gert van Bont, he went clear of the field soon after leaving the start at Chester, and is now trying to reach the first sprint at Nantwich. There's the main field assembling behind him, and they seem to be letting him go, Paul.
Well, there have been 1 or 2 attacks since the start, and this young rider has got the gap at the moment. He's a first-year professional, actually was an apprentice at the end of last year and surprised everybody by winning 2 races. But at the moment, it looks to me as if he's got the gap.
Well, here he is in Nantwich, and a lovely crowd here awaiting the passage of the race, and this man has picked up the benefit of a tailwind, and you know his speed has not dropped below 30 miles an hour. He quite literally is going like a train. I hope he's not making a big mistake. This is the sprint now for second place here in Nantwich, and Patrick Ike leading out his choice accountancy teammate there, Mark Walsham. Walsham is really now the big challenge to Ben Luckwell's leader's jersey in the Ordnance Survey Series, and it looks as though he's going to try and take second place. He's the rider in the white coming up on the left of our picture. The team has worked well for him there, Paul, and it looks as though Walsham is going to finish it off with a fine second place. It's a long way, but this man really is a fast finisher, and you know, he consistently beats Jan Zverada. And let's have a look at the sprint result. Van Bont gets the 5 points. He's well away at the moment. Walsham does beat Zarada, and you've got to be impressed with the way Mark is sprinting. Let's go back to the leader.
Well, the leader at the moment is going away quite nicely, 1 minute and 37 seconds, and he's a long way from the first climb, but he's really putting in a fine effort at the moment. And that sprint back there in Nantwich is going to be very dangerous for Ben Luckwell, because Mark Walsham is an excellent sprinter. In fact, he's a rider who's won the hotspot sprint competition in the Kelloggs Tour before.
So the riders are, in fact, this is back in Nantwich, and this is a crash which has happened, and this is Mirko Gualdi. Now, he was the world amateur road race champion in Japan a few years ago, and he's had a rather nasty fall here. The doctor's with him, and we've got to say that the doctors are always very quickly on the scene in the event, but it looks to me as though Mirko Gualdi is out of the race. That's where we are now, climbing Mao Cop, and there is the long straight road. A very difficult climb, this, and in fact, we've never gone up it before, as far as we know, with an international stage race. His lead is now 3 minutes, and he's on the steep slopes of Mao Cop.
Well, he's suffering as well. This is a very tough climb over the top of Mao Cop as we head now from Cheshire over into Staffordshire, but it sounds to me as if information is coming over the race radio, and this is now the confirmation that Gualdi has in fact got a broken collarbone and he'll be evacuated to hospital.
Well, that is really very sad, because in fact he's only just coming back from injury, and in fact this is only his first race since he crashed quite recently. So Gualdi out of the race, but a man who's trying to get out of the race in a very different style off the front is Mark McKay from Raleigh. A new professional. I think this is about his second professional race this year. Another man that's come back through injury. He broke a wrist in the start of the season in a race in Scotland, and now trying to come back as a pro. He's now hoping to hunt down this man who's struggling at the 200 metres mark on the climb. And it's Bannaday again, and I think it is a fair cop up here.
It is, but this man, Van Bont, is really struggling over the top of the climb. You know, the British climbs take the foreign riders by surprise so often, because they're very, very steep, and they do have to suffer over the top of these. A little bit further down the climb is Mark Mackay, but the main field now is really hotting up the pace. Maurizio Fondriest at the front here in the yellow jersey doesn't want to leave anything to chance, and keeping an eye out for any attacks from his rivals.
Well, on the left here in the white jersey is the King of the Mountains leader, Scott Sunderland, riding very, very well and looking a solid leader in this race. They're climbing the lower slopes, but the crowd's at its thickest here towards the summit, and over the top of the goes go Gert Van Bont. Well, the team tell us that this man is a real prospect for the future, and he's climbing well, but look at the difference in style, Paul. Mark McKay on the climb is zigzagging to try and keep up his rhythm.
He's lying in second place on the road at the moment, and he really seems to be suffering with his gears, and that's surprising because his rally teammate Martin Earley actually lives very close to the course here.
And this is the main field, and Fondriest dropped back a little bit there as Scott Sunderland hots up the pace. On his shoulder there's his teammate Bo Hamburger, and that's a very good move by the King of the Mountains leader. There's the lonely figure of Mark McKay, and he's making the top in second place, but in fact he's losing ground on the leader. So the young Belgian man out front still holding his own. And this is the battle now for third place on the climb, and Scott Sunderland really angry at being left out of the TVM team in the Tour de France, riding so well. Look at the damage behind.
Well, this climb really has taken the main field by surprise, and there are a lot of riders suffering over the top of this mountain at the moment. In fact, it appears to me there's a small group forcing themselves away at the top.
Well, they're certainly spreading themselves down that climb. And now let's go back to the two men from the Dutch TVM team. Bo Hamburger on our left, and back with his team leader, Scott Sunderland. And just look at the beautiful rhythm being stamped out here by Sunderland.
Well, I'm amazed at the way Sunderland is actually climbing in this race this year. He takes the points there for third place over the top of the climb, but it's amazing. He said on the first day, I want to win the King of the Mountains, and he really seems to be doing that quite easily.
Well, he's gained third place points here, Paul, behind Van Bont and McKay. Hamburger's no danger to him. He's a teammate, and Mark Vermee in fifth place. He's climbing quite well too in this race. And so let's go back up to the leader, because he's now on the next climb of High Cross Hill. And you know, although this is only ranked as a third category in this race, it actually seems to me to be much harder than Mocop. He's really struggling on this climb. The lead has come down for 3 minutes to 1 minute 30 seconds now. So the young Belgian rider is maybe a little bit beginning to regret that long attack. Well, after the climb of Mocop, a small group does appear to have escaped. Let's go down to Alan Piper.
This group got away here over Mocop. The dangerous riders in this group are Max Giandri, former winner of the Kelloggs Tour, and his team leader, Johan Massieu in the green jersey. These two riders want to stay away. Jens Ferraris here from Maurizio Fondrias Lamprey team. He's blocking the moves, as is Van Hooijdonk from Word Perfect. They won't be working, but Lamprey's going to have to chase behind.
So that's the chase group, and a quality group it most certainly is. And who knows that surely Van Bont now is going to have company on this climb, Paul.
I'm sure he'll be a very happy man if they do come up to him, but he still managed to get maximum points over the top of the King of the Mountains competition there. In fact, he's got a little bit of a drink from his team manager too.
And no doubt the manager's also told him about the approach of the group, and I'm afraid they're even closer to Mark McKay because they've caught him. So McKay will now try to grab a back wheel as they go through. And in this group we've got Johan Museeuw, and Max Chiandri is here, but the most important man, I suppose, Paul, is Jan Zerada, not only a teammate of the yellow jersey, but now the leader on the road.
Well, Van Bont here has a chance to look at the profile map that the riders all carry every day. In fact, he's looking at the next seesaw mountains that I think he's going to go over, and he won't like what's coming up.
Well, this is the climb of High Cross, and now let's have a look. And Bont is still out in front, but they're closing in. They're only 54 seconds behind him. At one time he had 7 minutes. And this group is ahead of the yellow jersey group with Maurizio Fondrias by over 3 minutes. So Zerada is the leader on the road, Paul. But look at this. He's completely cracked on the climb.
He really has. He's blown apart there. He just can't get the rhythm going, and that's going to be very good news for these men at the front, Johan Museeuw and Rolf Aldag, who's now become the new leader on the road, and he's putting the pressure on straight away.
Well, Aldag on the front here from the German Telecom team started the day 57 seconds away from Fondrias' yellow jersey. I'm not surprised he's piling on the pace now because he's pushing Zerada back away from this group down the mountain. And let's have a look at the result of High Cross Hill. Van Bont, Aldag, Museeuw, Van Hooijdonk, Hamburger and Alvis. And now the man they want most of all is Van Bont. Now this is the group on the way down, and they're gaining time all of the way down now over Jan Zerada. He's lost over 45 seconds as he comes up to the top of the climb, and he's got Mark McKay for company.
Well, that's going to throw a spanner into the works for the Lamprey squad, because now it'll have to change their whole tactics.
And look at this, Paul, because on this small climb here, as we continue to the Peak District, Van Bont out in front since 5 miles after Chester, has finally been caught by this chase group, and Aldag, now at the head of affairs, there he is in 3rd place, is now the leader of this race, and for the first time since Fondrias got the leader's yellow jersey, he now has to rethink his strategy. And I'm not surprised to see the Lamprey boys going over the top of High Cross Hill are setting the pace. Let's have a look at the time check.
Well, the time check is over 3 minutes, in fact 3 minutes 35 seconds, and this is a very dangerous move. There are some strong riders in there. Rolf Aldag is the leader overall on the road at the moment, but Johan Museeuw is there also, and Max Chiandri, who in fact was born in Derby, not too far away from Leicester.
Well, this has been an amazing race today. Let's join Alan Piper with the Fondrias group.
Tactics have flicked back in the face of the Lamprey team. They had Jens Ferrada up in the front. He got dropped. He was in yellow on the road, and Lamprey backed into the hilt. They thought he was going to go to the finish line. Now they've had to start chasing. They've already lost a man through a crash, and the front group's 3 minutes ahead. It's 5 before 12 for Maurizio Fondrias, and it's not looking good. Like fate has turned for the Lamprey team. They've enlisted the help of Word Perfect. Word Perfect were covered in the front group with Van Hooijdonk, but he was only going to finish in 3rd position overall, whereas Ekimov 2nd. So Word Perfect have come up to help Lamprey. There's still hope that Fondrias can stay in the yellow jersey.
Well, the race is now in Burton-upon-Trent, and Gert Van Bont, who started the attacking today, is still finding the strength to work. But the group, you know, is being closed down by that concerted chase. 53 seconds now, and Aldag is no longer the leader of this race on the road.
Well, that time gap means that Fondrias has now got his lead back in the overall competition, but I think without the help of Word Perfect, it would have been a very tough job for the Lamprey today. But in Burton-on-Trent, there is a bonus sprint here, and it looks to me as if that's what Aldag is thinking about.
And the 3 seconds on the line in the Ordnance Survey sprint is very important here to Aldag. He won't be challenged by the rider in 2nd place because that's his teammate Danny Nellison. He'll get 2 seconds in fact, and the whole field now still being closed down by the big chase. This has been a marvellous chase. It's lasted a lot of miles. There's the confirmation of the sprint. Aldag, Nellison and Edwig van Hooydonk from the Word Perfect team, the top three. But overall, Ben Luckwell, who, by the way, is a long way behind today, still leads in the competition ahead of Mark Walsham. 1 day to go for him. Here's the main field approaching the same sprint point, and they're all under the escort now of the survivors of the Lamprey team. Remember, they lost Medico Gualdi today at Nantwich. Now, what's going on, Paul, because there's confusion coming on. Look, it's down to 38 seconds. I think the breakaway knows it, but Max Chiandri is now making up his mind whether or not to go alone.
Well, they've lost their momentum a little bit. The fact the gap has come down so rapidly, they're not really sure what to do. You've got Johan Museo in the green jersey there, looking over his shoulder, deciding exactly what should happen. And in fact, Max Chiandri has taken the opportunity to jump clear alone.
So Museo is showing no firepower at all. He knows the field is coming up. He's trying to move away from the following cars to have a good look down the road there. That's why they're not reacting. Now, don't forget, the field are actually hunting for Aldag. If Chiandri can get out of sight, there is the chance they may not even know he's gone.
Well, that'll be an ideal situation for Chiandri, because if they can catch Aldag, and they've chased so hard for so long, they may well just sit up and let Chiandri go clear. But you can see still the work being done at the front of the pack here by the Lamprey squad, and 1 or 2 Word Perfect riders mingling in there, and the speeds have been very high since the top of those few climbs. They're always up around 30-35 miles an hour.
And the yellow jersey of Fondriest, 4th or 5th in that line, and right behind him the second place rider overall, Yekimov. Now here's the time check. Chiandri out on his own, 23 seconds ahead of the group he's just left, and 49 seconds on the field.
An interesting fact there, you can actually see Max Chiandri's wearing a heart rate monitor. A lot of riders use that to actually monitor their effort, and I thought it looked to me as if Chiandri's heart rate there was about 185, so you get an idea of just how hard he's pushing himself.
Well, that's Chiandri out front, and I wonder what the heart rate monitor is of Ralph Aldag. At one stage today, he was the new leader of the Kelloggs Tour of Britain. Now he's fighting just to keep Fondriest off his back wheel. Norm Alvis goes through, willing to help. So too Bo Hamburger. This is the pursuit behind now, with Maurizio Fondriest using all of his team here to drive this group along. And the rider who's doing the pace-making is Alexander Gonchenkov and Jan Zerada.
Well, these guys have done a fantastic job so far, but what you can notice now, in fact, the Word Perfect team have closed down. They're not assisting. In fact, they've all done a fantastic job, because the pink guard of Lamprey comes round the corner there, and they take those 3 riders back into the fold, and Aldag's day is over.
Well, until today, Fondriest has coped with this race all by himself, but my goodness me, tonight he's going to thank his team. They have ridden so well to keep him on top of the leaderboard. There he is, and right behind him in the blue and white there, Vacislav Yekimov, 2nd overall. And for a moment, the trouble is over, but this man hunting for the stage win, and don't let's forget, Paul, this rider was born in Derby.
Well, that will have been an added motivation for him, but I think the speed has gone out of Max Chiandri here now as he takes a bottle from the neutral service car, and we look down the road and we can see the main field, and that's what Max Chiandri is actually looking at now, and it won't be very long before they pull him back into their fold.
Well, I think many of you would think, why doesn't he keep on going? But Chiandri is a real tough professional. He knows the speed these riders will go over the last few miles, and he decided not to waste his effort. This is Hendrik Redant, who rode so well in Liverpool yesterday and narrowly missed the stage win behind Andre Schmill, and now he's trying to launch the counter-offensive.
He's really enjoying his job as a guest here on the FS Maestro team. He's joined in the yellow jersey there by Martin Den Bakker, and the rider at the back from the MGGB team is Marco Saligari.
Well, on the horizon, you can see Max Chiandri. The first to reach him will be Hendrik Redant, followed by Martin Den Bakker and Saligari, but the whole field behind, still being led by the Lamprey team, are chasing them down. I think they're going to make sure now that nobody escapes this group, which is 58 riders strong. There's a lot of riders behind the race today. First time finish in the city of Leicester, and indeed the finish is outside of the De Montfort University, and it's a very, very good finish for the sprinter. And maybe it will be a sprinter's day. The marshal there keeping the riders over, doing a great job today, and warning of holding traffic. So the riders now beginning to form for the sprint, Paul, and our man who's been the hero of the day, Gert van Bont, looks as though he has a touch of cramp, and he deserves it.
He's probably got very sore legs after that breakaway that he had today, but at the front of affairs, it's the Telecom team from Germany who are setting the pace. Now, they did this on the race into Blackpool. They did it on a lot of stages in the Tour de France. They're an extremely well-drilled squad.
2 kilometers to go for the whole field now. The sprinters are going to start sharpening their legs.
They really will, but it's a very tricky finish here in Leicester. 1 or 2 left and right-hand turns. They come in over a bridge, and if you put your brakes on at the wrong moment, you can lose 10 or 15 places, but still, it's the Telecom boys at the front keeping the pressure on.
And glancing over the shoulder as well to see if they can see their leader in that grey crash helmet, Olaf Ludwig, who took 3 second places on stages in the Tour de France this year, but never got his stage win. And they're pulling the line in a long, thin chain now as they come into the last kilometre. And this is going to be a tight battle now as they continue their race towards the finish. Look at the length of the line now. It must be spread over 250 metres. And they line up at the front, and Ludwig has got through. Tremendous piece of sprinting. And Jesper Skibby is trying to come through on the impossible side of Olaf Ludwig. And Erik Zabel, the teammate, is in the middle. He's come right in front of Jan Zerada. On the line then, Telecom will get first and third. Ludwig will be first and Zabel will be third.
Well, a superb position for Ludwig, coming right down the barriers there. He's going to get the victory he's been chasing since May this year. But there, just a little bit further back, in 5th place, was Gary Coltman.
Indeed, that was a great result for Gary Coltman, taking 5th. He lives here in Leicester, but he couldn't break the grip of the top sprinters in this race. A great win there for Olaf Ludwig. In fact, his first win since May this year. And finishing over 40 minutes back, Ben Luckwell, but he's still the leader of the Ordnance Sprint competition, and indeed with him, Rob Reynolds-Jones.
The team's been doing a great job for you.
Yes, it's a long time in the race was the team from Lampre, very fast after the first group. And the final, we have a good time work, and we know that the last 2 kilometers, many corners, and the last 200 meters was very good for me and for my team.
You happy with the victory?
Yes, sure.
Well, a tremendous sprint, and now he's got the struggle to pull on the green jersey. He leads that competition now, taking it away from Johan Museo as he pulls the jersey over his very large barreled chest. A very happy Olaf Ludwig. The overall, though, it's unchanged at the top. Fondriest keeps his 24 seconds lead over Yekimov. Ludwig is third. Aldad comes up to 4th. He goes 1 better than Sean Yates. Rob Reynolds-Jones is an hour back in last place. And on the podium, all of the leaders, absent Ben Luckwell, he was still to finish, but on the left is Scott Sunderland. On the far right, we've got Danny Nellison, and now we've got Ludwig in green and Fondriest in yellow. So Maurizio Fondriest under pressure today, handled himself very well, but he can expect more attacks tomorrow when this race goes on its final stage to Manchester. We're in the Pennines tomorrow, and the climb coming near the end, the Cat and Fiddle, and then it's all downhill, and we finish with 3 circuits of the city. Thanks again for all the banners out on the route today, and we really enjoy seeing them. Until tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, we'll leave you with just a small selection. Goodbye.